Chapter 1. There comes a moment in life when everything we thought we knew begins to unravel. It's not sudden, not like a lightning strike that splits the sky and illuminates everything at once. Instead, it's gradual, like the slow erosion of a cliffside as waves persistently crash against it, reshaping what once appeared solid. In this moment, we start to question the things we've held on to for so long, the beliefs, the identities, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're meant to be. It's in this quiet disintegration of certainty that the seed of transformation is planted, although many may not recognize it at first. What if, in the cracks of what is falling apart, there lies something entirely new waiting to emerge? What if the life we are living right now is just one version, a draft of what could be, and beneath its surface, an entirely different, more profound existence waits for us to open our eyes and see it? Imagine walking through a dense fog, unable to see more than a few feet ahead. You can't see the horizon nor the path that stretches beyond it. All you can do is trust your feet to move forward, one step at a time. The fog represents the limits of our current understanding, the narrow confines of how we've been taught to see ourselves and the world. But what if, beyond the fog, there exists a landscape so vibrant, so alive with possibility, that it could change everything? This is the threshold at which many people find themselves, a space between the known and the unknown, between what we've accepted and what we could discover. This threshold is not a place of comfort. It is a place of immense potential, but only for those willing to take the first step into the unknown. So many of us cling to the familiar, even when it no longer serves us, because the alternative, stepping into a new way of being, seems too uncertain, too risky. But what if the risk is not in stepping forward, but in remaining still? What if the greatest danger lies in staying where we are, never knowing what might have been? As you stand at this precipice, you may feel the stirrings of something deep within you. A whisper, a subtle nudge from your inner self that tells you there is more to life than what you've experienced so far. This whisper is not loud, nor is it insistent. It's gentle but persistent, like the soft flutter of a butterfly's wings against your skin, reminding you that you are alive, that you are more than your routines and obligations. This is the call of your true self, the part of you that has been quietly observing, waiting for the moment when you are ready to listen. And yet, for many, this voice is drowned out by the noise of daily life, the constant chatter of the mind, the demands of the external world. We live in a society that values doing over being, that rewards busyness over stillness. But in this constant motion, we lose touch with the very essence of who we are. We become disconnected from the quiet voice within, the one that holds the key to our deepest truth. It's not easy to quiet the mind, to step away from the distractions that pull at us from every direction. But what if, for a moment, you could pause? What if you could allow yourself to simply be, without needing to accomplish anything, without needing to prove anything? In this space of stillness, you might begin to notice something remarkable. The voice of your inner self growing stronger, clearer. It's not a voice that demands attention. It doesn't shout or insist. Instead, it offers gentle guidance, a kind of knowing that transcends logic and reason. This is the voice of intuition, the part of you that sees beyond the surface, that understands the deeper currents of life. And yet, how often do we ignore it? How often do we push it aside in favor of the loud, insistent demands of the outside world? We've been taught to trust what we can see, hear, and touch, to rely on the tangible, the measurable. But in doing so, we've lost touch with the intangible, the unseen forces that shape our lives in ways we cannot always understand. This is where the journey truly begins, not with answers, but with questions. What if the answers we seek are not found in the external world, but within ourselves? What if the path to transformation is not about acquiring more, doing more, or becoming more, but about peeling back the layers of who we think we are, revealing the truth that has always been there, waiting to be uncovered? It's a process of unlearning, of letting go of the stories that have been handed to us, the identities we've constructed, and the beliefs we've adopted. And as we do, something extraordinary happens. We begin to see ourselves and the world in an entirely new way. The walls we've built around ourselves, walls of fear, doubt, and limitation, begin to crumble, and in their place we find space to breathe, to expand, to grow. This is the space of possibility, where the life we've dreamed of, but never dared to pursue, can finally take root. But the path to this space is not a straight line. It's not a journey with a clear destination or a map to guide the way. It's a winding, sometimes messy, process of exploration and discovery. There will be moments of doubt, times when the old ways of thinking and being try to pull you back. There will be times when you question whether the journey is worth it, whether the effort required to step into the unknown is too great. But in these moments, remember this: growth does not come from comfort. Transformation does not happen when we remain in the familiar. It is in the stretching, the reaching beyond what we know, that we find our greatest potential. And in this stretching, we discover not only who we are, but who we are capable of becoming. It's important to remember that this journey is not about perfection. It's not about reaching some ideal version of yourself or achieving a certain level of success. It's about becoming more of who you truly are, peeling away the layers of conditioning, fear, and self-doubt that have kept you from living in alignment with your deepest truth. This is not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It's an ongoing process, a continual unfolding. Each day, you are given the opportunity to step more fully into your authentic self, to live in a way that reflects the truth of who you are. And with each step, you move closer to a life that feels more expansive, more alive, more aligned with the deeper rhythms of your soul. In this moment, as you listen, you are standing at the edge of possibility. The life you have lived up until now has brought you to this point, but it does not define what comes next. The choices you make from here, the thoughts you entertain, the beliefs you hold, the actions you take, will shape the path ahead. And while the road may be uncertain, there is one thing you can be sure of. You are capable of more than you know. There is a power within you, a light that has been waiting to shine, and all it takes is your willingness to turn inward, to listen to the voice of your true self, and to trust that, no matter how foggy the path ahead may seem, the way forward will reveal itself in time. As you embark on this journey of self-discovery and transformation, know that you are not alone. You are supported by the wisdom within you, the guidance that has always been there, waiting for you to listen. And as you take each step, you move closer to the life you were always meant to live. Chapter 2: The Power of Belief. Belief is the silent architect of our reality, an unseen force shaping our thoughts, our actions, and ultimately the world around us. Yet, so often, we walk through life unaware of the profound influence our beliefs have over the course of our existence. From the moment we are born, we begin to absorb ideas, messages, and patterns of thought from the world around us, our families, our cultures, the society that envelops us like the air we breathe. These beliefs become the lenses through which we see everything, from the way we perceive ourselves to how we interpret the events that unfold in our lives. And yet, these lenses are rarely examined. They become so ingrained, so much a part of the fabric of our minds, that we mistake them for reality itself. But what if the beliefs that shape our lives are not truths at all? What if they are merely constructs, and in some cases, constructs that no longer serve us? Consider for a moment the beliefs you hold about yourself. Perhaps you believe that you are not good enough, not smart enough, not capable of achieving the things you dream of. Perhaps you carry with you the belief that life is hard, that success is reserved for the few, that happiness is fleeting and out of reach. These beliefs, though invisible, act as the framework of your reality. Every thought, every choice, every action is filtered through the beliefs you hold, and so they become self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe that you are not worthy of success, you will unconsciously make decisions that ensure you do not succeed. If you believe that the world is a dangerous place, you will find yourself surrounded by fear and limitation. But here's the thing. These beliefs are not set in stone. They are not immutable laws of the universe. They are choices. Choices that, once made, can also be unmade. It's easy to think that our beliefs are truths, that they are reflections of reality rather than the creators of it. But when we begin to understand that our beliefs are simply thoughts we've repeated so often that they've become ingrained in our psyche, we open the door to something extraordinary, the possibility of changing them. And with that possibility comes the power to change our lives. Think about it. If your beliefs are the blueprint of your reality, then by changing the blueprint, you can change the structure of your life. You can dismantle the walls that have kept you confined to a certain way of being, and build something new, something expansive, something aligned with your deepest desires and highest potential. But how do we change beliefs that have been with us for so long, that have become so deeply embedded in our consciousness that they feel like truths? It starts with awareness. We must first become aware of the beliefs we hold and recognize the impact they have on our lives. This is not always easy, as many of our beliefs operate beneath the surface, influencing us in ways we don't even realize. But with intention and attention, we can begin to uncover them. We can start by asking ourselves powerful questions. What do I believe about myself? What do I believe about the world? What do I believe is possible for me? These questions can be uncomfortable because they force us to confront the stories we've been telling ourselves for so long. But it is in this confrontation that the seeds of change are planted. Once we've identified the beliefs that no longer serve us, the next step is to question them. This is where the real work begins. Because for every belief we hold, there is an alternative, a different perspective, a new way of seeing the world. What if, instead of believing that you are not good enough, you chose to believe that you are more than enough? What if, instead of believing that life is hard, you chose to believe that life is abundant and full of opportunities? These new beliefs may feel foreign at first, even uncomfortable. They may challenge everything you've known up until this point. But with time and practice, they can become just as ingrained, just as powerful as the old beliefs. And as they do, your reality will begin to shift. But it's important to understand that changing your beliefs is not a one-time event. It's not as simple as deciding to think differently, and watching your life magically transform overnight. Beliefs are deeply rooted, and they have likely been reinforced by years of experience and conditioning. Changing them requires commitment, persistence, and a willingness to do the inner work. It requires you to be vigilant, to catch yourself in the moments when your old beliefs creep back in, and to consciously choose a different thought, a different perspective. It requires you to take responsibility for your life in a way that many people are not willing to do. But for those who are willing, the rewards are immense. Imagine, for a moment, what your life could look like if you were free from the limiting beliefs that have held you back. Imagine what you could achieve if you truly believed in your worth, in your power, in your ability to create the life you desire. Imagine the relationships you could build, the dreams you could pursue, the joy you could experience if you let go of the belief that you are not enough. This is not just a fantasy. It is a very real possibility, one that is available to you right now. But it starts with a choice. The choice to examine your beliefs, to question them, and to replace them with something more empowering. Of course, this process is not without its challenges. As you begin to shift your beliefs, you may encounter resistance, both from within yourself and from the world around you. Your old beliefs will try to pull you back, to convince you that they are still true, that they are still valid. And the people in your life, especially those who are comfortable with the version of you that has been shaped by your old beliefs, may also resist your transformation. They may question your new perspective, challenge your new beliefs, or even try to pull you back into old patterns of thinking and being. But this is all part of the journey. Growth is rarely comfortable, and transformation is often met with resistance. But it is in pushing through this resistance that we find our greatest strength. So, what will you choose to believe? Will you continue to hold on to the beliefs that have kept you small, that have limited your potential, that have created a life of struggle and limitation? Or will you choose to believe in something new, something expansive, something that aligns with the deepest truth of who you are? The choice is yours, and with it comes the power to shape your reality. Because at the end of the day, it is not the world that shapes us. It is our beliefs about the world and about ourselves that determine the course of our lives. And when we change our beliefs, we change everything. Chapter 3. Embracing Uncertainty. Uncertainty is something we all face, and yet, for many, it is the very thing we dread most. The human mind craves stability, predictability, and the assurance that tomorrow will unfold in a way that aligns with our expectations. We build routines, we make plans, and we cling to the notion that we can control the outcome of our lives if we only try hard enough. But beneath this carefully constructed facade of control lies a truth that we often resist acknowledging. Life, in all its complexity and beauty, is inherently uncertain. It is unpredictable, dynamic, and ever-changing, and no matter how tightly we grasp we cannot mold it into a fixed shape. And yet, it is precisely within this uncertainty that the greatest possibilities exist. The unknown, far from being something to fear, holds the seeds of transformation, growth, and limitless potential, if only we learn to embrace it. For so many of us, uncertainty is equated with danger. When we cannot see the road ahead, when the outcome is unclear, we feel vulnerable, exposed, as if the very ground beneath our feet might give way at any moment. This fear of the unknown is deeply ingrained in us. From an early age, we are taught to plan, to prepare, to ensure that we have control over our future. But in reality, control is an illusion. No matter how meticulously we plan, Life has a way of surprising us, of throwing us curveballs that we never could have anticipated. And it is in those moments when the unexpected occurs that we are forced to confront the reality of uncertainty. But what if, instead of resisting this uncertainty, we could find a way to embrace it? What if we could learn to see the unknown not as something to fear, but as something to welcome with open arms, knowing that it holds within it the possibility for something greater than we could have imagined? Imagine for a moment what it would be like to live your life free from the need for certainty, to wake up each day with a sense of openness, a willingness to let go of your expectations and allow life to unfold in its own way. Imagine what it would feel like to release the constant need to know what's coming next, to stop trying to control every outcome, and to trust instead in the flow of life. This is not a passive surrender, but an active choice to align yourself with the natural rhythms of existence, to move with the current rather than against it. When you stop fighting the uncertainty, when you stop trying to impose your will on the unfolding of life, something extraordinary happens. You begin to discover the magic that lies in the unexpected. You start to see opportunities where once there were only obstacles. You begin to realize that the unknown is not a void to be filled, but a canvas upon which the greatest possibilities are painted. But embracing uncertainty requires more than just a shift in perspective. It requires a deep inner trust. Trust in yourself, trust in life, and trust in the process of becoming. It requires you to let go of the need for guarantees and to step into the unknown with a sense of curiosity, wonder, and faith that whatever comes your way, you have the capacity to navigate it. This is not about blind optimism or ignoring the challenges that life presents. It's about developing a relationship with uncertainty that is rooted in a sense of inner stability, knowing that even when the external world is chaotic and unpredictable, you have within you a source of strength, resilience, and wisdom that can guide you through any storm. This inner stability is not something that comes from controlling the outside world. It comes from cultivating a deep connection with your true self, the part of you that remains unshaken by the ebbs and flows of life. So, how do we begin to cultivate this relationship with uncertainty? It starts with releasing the belief that we need to have all the answers. So often, we are conditioned to believe that we must have a clear plan, that we must know exactly where we are going and how we are going to get there. But in reality, life rarely follows a straight path. It twists and turns, and often, the destinations we think we are heading toward are not where we end up. This is not a failure. It is simply the nature of the journey. When we can release the need to have everything figured out, we create space for something greater to emerge. We open ourselves to the possibility that life might have a plan for us that is far beyond what we could have envisioned for ourselves. This process of letting go can be challenging, especially when we are so used to relying on certainty for a sense of security. But when we allow ourselves to release control, we begin to tap into a deeper sense of trust. A trust that life is not random, that there is a greater intelligence at work, guiding us toward the experiences we need for our growth and evolution. This doesn't mean that everything will always go the way we want it to, or that we won't face difficulties along the way. It means that even in the midst of uncertainty, we can find peace in knowing that we are exactly where we are meant to be. It means recognizing that the challenges and unexpected turns are not obstacles, but opportunities for growth, for learning, and for expanding into a greater version of ourselves. One of the most powerful ways to embrace uncertainty is to shift our focus from outcomes to the present moment. So often, our anxiety and fear around uncertainty come from our fixation on the future, on what might happen, on what we might lose, on what we cannot control. But when we bring our attention back to the present, we realize that in this moment, right here and now, we are okay. We have everything we need in this moment to navigate whatever comes next. The future is not something we can control or predict, but the present is where we have the power to act, to make choices, to create. When we learn to ground ourselves in the present moment, the fear of uncertainty begins to dissolve, because we realize that we do not need to know what the future holds in order to move forward. Another key to embracing uncertainty is to cultivate a sense of curiosity and openness. Instead of seeing the unknown as a threat, what if we could see it as an adventure? What if we approached life with the mindset of a traveler exploring new terrain, eager to see what lies around the next bend? Curiosity allows us to let go of our need for control and opens us up to new possibilities. It invites us to ask questions, to explore, to experiment, and to discover. When we approach life with curiosity, we stop seeing uncertainty as something to be feared and start seeing it as an invitation to grow, to learn, and to evolve. Ultimately, uncertainty is not something to be conquered or overcome. It is something to be embraced. It is a natural part of life, and when we learn to dance with it rather than resist it, we unlock a level of freedom and possibility that we never knew existed. We begin to realize that the very things we fear, change, the unknown, the unexpected, are the things that offer us the greatest opportunities for growth and transformation. When we stop trying to control every aspect of our lives, we open ourselves to the flow of life itself, and in doing so, we allow the magic of the universe to work through us in ways we could never have imagined. As you continue on this journey, remember that uncertainty is not something to be feared. It is a gift. It is a doorway to new experiences, new perspectives, and new possibilities. It is the fertile ground from which your greatest growth will emerge. So, the next time you find yourself standing at the edge of the unknown, instead of turning back in fear, take a deep breath and step forward with curiosity, trust, and an open heart. Because it is in those moments when we are willing to embrace uncertainty that we find the greatest opportunities for transformation, for connection, and for living a life that is truly aligned with the deepest truth of who we are. Chapter 4. The Inner Voice. There is a voice inside each of us, a quiet but ever-present whisper that guides us, nudges us, and calls us toward something greater than ourselves. It is not loud or demanding. It doesn't scream for our attention in the way that the external world does. Instead, it waits patiently, always present, always available, but often drowned out by the noise of our daily lives. This voice is what many call intuition, the inner knowing that transcends logic, reason, and explanation. It is the compass of our soul, pointing us toward our true north, guiding us through the labyrinth of life with a wisdom that cannot be found in books or taught in classrooms. And yet, so often, we ignore it. We silence it. We let it be overshadowed by the louder, more insistent voices of doubt, fear, and external expectations. But what if we began to listen? What if we tuned in to this quiet voice and allowed it to guide us, to lead us toward a life that feels deeply aligned with who we truly are? Listening to your inner voice is not something that comes naturally in a world that values intellect, logic, and rationality above all else. From a young age, we are taught to rely on our minds, to make decisions based on facts, evidence, and what can be measured and seen. We are encouraged to seek advice from others, to look outside of ourselves for answers, and to trust in the opinions and judgments of those around us. But in doing so, we often disconnect from the wisdom that resides within. This inner wisdom doesn't come with a step-by-step manual or a guarantee of success. It doesn't always make sense in the moment, and it often challenges the conventional wisdom that we've been taught to follow. But it is precisely because of this that it holds such power. Our inner voice doesn't operate within the same limitations as our logical mind. It sees beyond the surface, beyond the immediate circumstances, and taps into a deeper, more expansive understanding of what is true and right for us. Have you ever had a feeling, an inexplicable sense of knowing that something was right or wrong without being able to explain why? Perhaps you've had a hunch about a decision, a relationship, or a situation that didn't align with the facts at hand but proved to be true in the end. This is your intuition at work, the subtle voice of your inner self communicating with you in ways that transcend language and logic. It is always there, always guiding you, but so often we dismiss it because it doesn't conform to the standards of reason, or because it leads us in a direction that feels uncertain or unfamiliar. But just because something cannot be explained doesn't mean it isn't real. In fact, the greatest truths in life are often those that cannot be measured or quantified. They are felt, sensed, and known on a level that goes beyond the intellect. To begin listening to your inner voice requires a shift in how you engage with yourself and the world around you. It requires you to slow down, to create space in your life for stillness and reflection. In the rush and busyness of modern life, it can be difficult to hear anything beyond the constant stream of thoughts, responsibilities, and external demands. Our minds are constantly racing, planning, worrying, and analyzing, and in this noise, the quiet voice of intuition is easily lost. But when we intentionally carve out moments of silence, when we step away from the chaos and give ourselves permission to simply be, we begin to reconnect with that deeper part of ourselves. We start to notice the subtle stirrings of intuition, the gentle nudges that guide us toward a path that feels more aligned with our true nature. One of the most powerful ways to access your inner voice is through the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present in the moment, of bringing your attention to the here and now without judgment or distraction. It is about tuning in to what is happening within you and around you with a sense of openness and curiosity. When you practice mindfulness, you create the space for your inner voice to emerge. You quiet the noise of the mind, the chatter of worry and doubt, and you become attuned to the subtle signals of intuition. This can happen in the quiet moments of meditation, in the stillness of nature, or even in the midst of your daily activities when you are fully present and engaged with what is before you. But listening to your inner voice is not just about tuning in during moments of stillness. It is also about trusting what you hear, even when it doesn't make logical sense, or when it goes against the expectations of others. So often we hear the whispers of intuition, but we ignore them because they lead us in a direction that feels uncertain or uncomfortable. We question whether we can trust this inner knowing, especially when it conflicts with what seems rational or practical. But intuition doesn't operate within the confines of logic. It sees beyond the immediate circumstances, beyond the surface of things, and it connects us to a deeper truth that cannot always be explained. Trusting your inner voice means having the courage to follow its guidance, even when it leads you into the unknown. It means being willing to step off the well-trodden path and to forge your own way, knowing that the wisdom of your soul is far greater than the limitations of your mind. There will be times when following your intuition feels like stepping into the void. The path ahead may not be clear, and you may not know where it will lead, but this is where trust comes in. Trust that your inner voice is guiding you toward something greater, something that is in alignment with your highest good, even if you cannot see it in the moment. Trust that, even in the uncertainty, you are being led toward a life that feels more authentic, more expansive, and more aligned with who you truly are. This trust doesn't come easily, especially in a world that values certainty and control. But the more you listen to and follow your inner voice, the more you will begin to see the evidence of its wisdom in your life. You will start to notice how things unfold in ways you never could have planned, how opportunities arise that you never could have anticipated, and how your life begins to feel more aligned, more purposeful, and more fulfilling. Your inner voice is not just a tool for making decisions. It is a reflection of your deepest truth. It is the part of you that knows, without a doubt, what is right for you, even when the world around you seems to suggest otherwise. It is the voice of your higher self, the aspect of you that is connected to something greater, something beyond the limitations of the physical world. When you listen to and follow this voice, you are not just making better choices. You are aligning yourself with the flow of life itself. You are stepping into a current of energy that is always moving toward your highest good, always guiding you toward the experiences, people, and opportunities that will help you grow and evolve. But to fully embrace this inner guidance, you must also let go of the need for external validation. So often, we look to others for approval, for reassurance that we are on the right path. We seek the opinions of friends, family, and colleagues, hoping that they will confirm what we already know deep inside. But no one outside of you can tell you what is right for you. No one else can hear the voice of your soul, and no one else can walk the path that is meant for you. When you rely on external validation, you give away your power, and you diminish your connection to your inner voice. But when you turn inward and trust yourself, you reclaim that power, and you begin to live from a place of true authenticity. As you move forward in life, remember that your inner voice is always with you, even in the moments when it feels faint or distant. It is always there, waiting for you to listen, waiting for you to trust, waiting for you to follow its guidance. And as you deepen your connection to this voice, you will begin to experience life in a way that feels more expansive, more aligned, and more true to who you are. You will no longer feel the need to seek answers outside of yourself, because you will know, deep within, that you already have all the answers you need. You will know that your inner voice is the most powerful guide you could ever have, and that by following it, you are living in alignment with the highest truth of your soul. Chapter 5. Letting Go of Resistance. Resistance is a subtle yet powerful force that often goes unnoticed, lurking in the shadows of our thoughts and actions, shaping the way we experience life. It manifests in countless forms: procrastination, avoidance, self-sabotage, and even the chronic tension we carry in our bodies. Resistance is not simply a roadblock. It is a force that stands between us and the life we desire to create, between us and the growth we seek. At its core, resistance is fear in disguise, a fear of change, a fear of the unknown, a fear of stepping outside the familiar boundaries of our current reality. And yet, despite its quiet persistence, resistance is not something to be feared or avoided. It is, in fact, one of the greatest teachers we will ever encounter on our journey toward self-awareness and personal transformation. For in recognizing and understanding our resistance, we begin to unlock the key to our own freedom. What exactly is resistance, and why does it show up so frequently when we are on the verge of growth or change? Resistance is the mind's way of protecting us from perceived danger, whether that danger is real or imagined. It is the ego's attempt to maintain the status quo, to keep us safe within the confines of what we know and understand. The ego thrives on familiarity, on the predictable patterns that have kept us alive up to this point. But growth, by its very nature, requires us to step outside of those familiar patterns, to venture into new territory, and to embrace the unknown. This is where resistance kicks in, pulling us back, telling us that it's safer to stay where we are, even if where we are is not where we want to be. Think of resistance as an invisible force field, one that grows stronger the closer we get to the edge of our comfort zone. The moment we set an intention to change, whether it's to start a new habit, pursue a goal, or transform an aspect of ourselves, resistance begins to rise. It may come in the form of distractions that suddenly seem urgent, thoughts of self-doubt that creep into our minds, or a sense of overwhelm that makes the task ahead feel impossible. It whispers in our ear that we are not ready, not capable, not worthy. And if we are not mindful, resistance can easily derail our efforts before we've even begun. But here's the thing. Resistance only shows up when we are moving toward something that matters. It is a signal that we are on the path of growth, that we are stepping into new territory. The stronger the resistance, the more important the changes for our personal evolution. So, how do we move through resistance without letting it stop us in our tracks? The first step is to recognize it for what it is. So often, we mistake resistance for a sign that we are on the wrong path. We think that if something feels difficult or uncomfortable, it must not be meant for us. But in reality, resistance is a natural part of the growth process. It is not a sign that we should stop. It is a sign that we are moving in the right direction. When we can begin to see resistance as an indicator of progress rather than a barrier, we shift our relationship with it. Instead of fighting against it or running from it, we can learn to embrace it as part of the journey. One of the most effective ways to move through resistance is to bring awareness to it. Resistance thrives in the dark. It grows stronger when we are unaware of its presence. But when we shine a light on it, when we name it, acknowledge it, and observe it without judgment, it begins to lose its power over us. We start to see it for what it truly is, a mental construct, a defense mechanism of the ego, not an insurmountable obstacle. In this space of awareness, we can begin to explore the underlying fears that fuel our resistance. What are we truly afraid of? Is it failure, or is it the possibility of success? Is it the discomfort of change, or is it the uncertainty of stepping into the unknown? By bringing these fears into the light of consciousness, we can begin to disarm them, to see that they are not as powerful or as real as they seem. But awareness alone is not enough. To truly move through resistance, we must also take action. Resistance is often strongest in the moments leading up to action, in the anticipation of change, in the space between intention and execution. But once we begin to move, once we take that first step, resistance starts to dissolve. Action is the antidote to resistance. It is through action that we begin to build momentum, to prove to ourselves that we are capable of moving forward, even in the face of fear. And with each step we take, resistance loses its grip on us. It becomes quieter, less insistent, and eventually it fades into the background, replaced by a sense of flow and ease. It's important to note that moving through resistance does not mean forcing ourselves to push through it with sheer willpower. Willpower alone is not sustainable, and it often leads to burnout. Instead, it's about approaching resistance with compassion and curiosity, allowing ourselves to move forward in a way that feels aligned with our inner truth. This might mean taking smaller steps than we initially planned, or it might mean allowing ourselves to rest when we need it, knowing that rest is an essential part of the process. It's about finding a balance between action and self-compassion, between moving forward and honoring our own pace. Resistance will always be a part of the journey, but it does not have to control us. In fact, when we learn to work with it rather than against it, resistance can become a powerful ally in our personal growth. It shows us where we are holding back, where we are afraid to step into our full potential, and where we are resisting the changes that will ultimately lead to our highest good. By acknowledging and embracing resistance, we begin to reclaim our power. We no longer see it as something to be feared or avoided, but as a necessary part of the path to transformation. And in doing so, we free ourselves to move forward with greater clarity, confidence, and purpose. Another important aspect of overcoming resistance is learning to let go of the need for perfection. So often, we resist taking action because we are afraid of not doing it perfectly, of making mistakes, or of falling short of our own expectations. But perfectionism is just another form of resistance, a way to keep ourselves stuck in the illusion of safety. The truth is, there is no such thing as perfect. There is only progress, only the ongoing process of learning, growing, and evolving. When we let go of the need to be perfect, we give ourselves permission to take imperfect action, to move forward even when we don't have all the answers, even when the path is unclear. And in doing so, we begin to build the resilience and confidence needed to face resistance head-on. Letting go of resistance is not about eliminating it entirely. It's about recognizing that resistance is a natural part of the human experience, and learning to navigate it with grace and awareness. It's about cultivating a mindset of openness and flexibility, knowing that resistance will arise but that we have the tools to move through it. It's about trusting that on the other side of resistance lies growth, transformation, and the fulfillment of our deepest desires. And it's about remembering that we are not defined by our resistance, but by how we choose to respond to it. In the end, resistance is not the enemy, it is a mirror. It reflects back to us the areas of our lives where we are being called to grow, to stretch, and to expand beyond our current limitations. It is an invitation to step into the fullness of who we are, to embrace the discomfort of change, and to trust that we have the strength, the wisdom, and the resilience to navigate whatever comes our way. By embracing resistance, we open ourselves to the vast possibilities that lie beyond it. We free ourselves from the confines of fear and limitation, and we step boldly into a life that is more aligned, more expansive, and more true to who we are at our core. Chapter 6. The Power of Presence. Presence is the simplest and yet most profound state of being, and yet, for so many of us, it is the hardest to maintain. In a world that constantly pulls our attention in 100 different directions, being fully present in any given moment feels almost impossible. We live in an age of distraction, where the demands of work, relationships, technology, and our own restless minds make it difficult to anchor ourselves in the here and now. Our thoughts are often scattered, racing ahead to future worries or lingering on past regrets, rarely settling in the one place where life actually happens, the present moment. And yet, the present moment is all we ever truly have. It is the only place where we can experience life, make decisions, and connect with ourselves and others in a meaningful way. The future is a projection, and the past is a memory. But the present is alive, vibrant, and full of possibility, if we can learn to access it fully. To live in the present moment is to be in a state of mindfulness, where we are fully aware of our surroundings, our thoughts, our emotions, and the sensations in our bodies. It is a state of heightened awareness, where we engage with life in real time, without the filters of judgment or expectation. When we are present, we are not lost in thought or consumed by worry. We are simply here, experiencing life as it unfolds, moment by moment. This sounds simple, and yet it is anything but easy. Our minds are constantly in motion, always seeking something else, whether it's the next task, the next goal, or the next moment that we believe will bring us happiness or fulfillment. We are rarely content to simply be. And in this perpetual search for something more, we miss the richness of life that is right in front of us. But why is it so difficult to stay present? Why do we find ourselves constantly pulled away from the moment, even when we know that being present is the key to a more fulfilling life? The answer lies in the way our minds have been conditioned. From a young age, we are taught to value achievement, productivity, and forward momentum. We are encouraged to always be thinking about the future, planning for what comes next, and working toward our next goal. While there is nothing inherently wrong with setting goals or planning for the future, this mindset often leaves us disconnected from the present. We become so focused on what we are trying to achieve that we forget to experience the journey. We start to see life as a series of tasks to be completed, rather than as a series of moments to be lived. Furthermore, many of us use distractions, whether it's work, entertainment, or our devices, to avoid being present because being fully present can sometimes feel uncomfortable. When we are truly present, we are confronted with the reality of our emotions, our thoughts, and our circumstances without the buffer of distraction. For some, this can be overwhelming, especially if there are unresolved feelings or difficult truths that we have been avoiding. Being present forces us to face ourselves in a way that few other experiences do. It strips away the layers of pretense, of busyness, and of denial, leaving us with the raw reality of who we are and where we are in this moment. But it is precisely in this rawness, in this vulnerability, that the power of presence lies. When we allow ourselves to be fully present, we also allow ourselves to be fully alive. We open ourselves to the full spectrum of human experience, the joys, the sorrows, the challenges, and the triumphs, without numbing ourselves to any part of it. We stop running from our emotions and instead learn to sit with them, to feel them fully, and to let them move through us without resistance. This doesn't mean that we become passive or indifferent to the challenges we face. On the contrary, when we are present, we are better able to respond to life's challenges with clarity and intention, rather than reacting out of fear, habit, or unconscious patterns. Presence also deepens our relationships, both with ourselves and with others. When we are fully present with ourselves, we cultivate a deeper understanding of our own needs, desires, and values. We become more attuned to the subtle signals that our bodies and minds send us, allowing us to make choices that are more aligned with our true selves. In our interactions with others, presence allows us to truly listen and connect, rather than simply going through the motions of conversation or interaction. When we are present with another person, we create a space for genuine connection and understanding, a space where we can be fully seen and heard, and where we can offer the same gift to others. This kind of presence is rare in today's fast-paced world, but it is one of the most powerful ways we can show up for ourselves and for the people we care about. To cultivate presence, we must first recognize the ways in which we disconnect from the present moment. This requires mindfulness, the practice of observing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without judgment. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice how often our minds wander, how often we get caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past. We start to see the patterns of distraction that pull us away from the moment, whether it's the urge to check our phones, the habit of multitasking, or the constant mental chatter that fills our minds. By bringing awareness to these patterns, we can begin to gently redirect our attention back to the present moment, again and again. Mindfulness is not about forcing ourselves to stay present at all times. That would be impossible. Rather, it is about developing a habit of returning to the present, even when our minds wander. It's about cultivating a sense of curiosity and openness toward whatever arises in the moment, without trying to change it or judge it. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to embrace the present moment, even when it is uncomfortable or difficult. We stop resisting what is, and in doing so, we find a deeper sense of peace and acceptance. One of the simplest and most effective ways to practice presence is through mindful breathing. Our breath is always with us, always anchoring us in the present moment. By bringing our attention to the sensation of the breath moving in and out of the body, we can create a moment of stillness and awareness in the midst of even the busiest day. This doesn't require any special equipment or preparation, just a willingness to pause, to breathe, and to bring our attention to the here and now. In those moments of mindful breathing, we give ourselves a break from the constant stream of thoughts and worries. We create a space where we can reconnect with ourselves and with the present moment. Over time, as we practice mindfulness and cultivate presence, we begin to notice subtle but profound shifts in the way we experience life. We become more attuned to the beauty of ordinary moments, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of the wind through the trees, the feeling of a deep breath filling our lungs. We start to appreciate the small, seemingly insignificant moments that make up the fabric of our lives. We stop rushing through life, always trying to get to the next thing, and instead, we learn to savor each moment as it comes. This doesn't mean that life becomes perfect or that challenges disappear, but it does mean that we are better equipped to navigate those challenges with grace and resilience. Presence is not something we achieve once and for all. It is a practice, one that we must return to again and again, especially in moments of stress, uncertainty, or difficulty. But with each moment of presence, we strengthen our ability to live fully and deeply. We begin to see that life is not something that happens to us, but something we actively participate in, moment by moment. We realize that the present moment is not just a stepping stone to the future, but a destination in itself. A place where we can experience the fullness of life in all its complexity and beauty. By cultivating presence, we free ourselves from the constant striving, the endless chase for something more, and we begin to live in a way that feels more connected, more authentic, and more aligned with the truth of who we are. Presence is not about doing more. It is about being more. It is about fully inhabiting each moment, each breath, and each experience with a sense of openness and curiosity. And in doing so, we discover the richness of life that has been here all along, waiting for us to simply notice. Chapter 7. As you move through life, you will inevitably encounter moments where everything feels as though it's culminating into a singular point. Moments where all the lessons you've learned, all the growth you've experienced, and all the inner transformations you've undergone seem to converge. These are moments of profound clarity, where you realize that every step you've taken, every choice you've made, has led you to this exact place, this exact experience. But such moments are rare, and in between them, life is often messy, uncertain, and filled with the mundane tasks of everyday existence. Yet, it is precisely within this messiness, this uncertainty, that the magic of life unfolds. The journey of personal transformation is not a linear path. It is a spiraling journey, one where you revisit old lessons from new perspectives, where growth happens in layers, and where the process of becoming never truly ends. What often surprises people about the journey of self-discovery and growth is that it doesn't lead to a final destination. There is no point at which you arrive and can declare yourself fully complete, fully enlightened, or fully transformed. Instead, the journey itself is the destination. Each day, each moment, offers an opportunity to deepen your awareness, to expand your capacity for love and compassion, and to step more fully into the truth of who you are. And while this can feel daunting, this idea that the work is never truly done, it can also be incredibly liberating. It means that there is no pressure to be perfect, no expectation that you must have it all figured out. You are allowed to be a work in progress, to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow. The journey is what matters, not the end point. When we release the need to reach a final destination, we free ourselves to experience life in a more open, expansive way. We stop striving for some ideal version of ourselves or our lives, and we begin to embrace the beauty of the present moment, with all its imperfections and uncertainties. This doesn't mean that we stop setting goals or working toward personal growth. It means that we approach these things from a place of acceptance and grace, rather than from a place of lack or inadequacy. We stop trying to fix ourselves or our lives and instead focus on nurturing what already exists within us. We recognize that we are not broken, that there is nothing inherently wrong with us, and that our journey is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming more of who we truly are. In the process of becoming, we often find that the things we once thought were important, external achievements, material success, approval from others, begin to lose their hold on us. We start to see that true fulfillment doesn't come from outside of ourselves, but from within. It comes from living in alignment with our values, from cultivating deep and meaningful relationships, and from engaging with the world in a way that feels authentic and true to who we are. This is not to say that external success or material achievements are inherently bad, but rather that they are not the ultimate source of happiness or fulfillment. When we place all our worth in these external markers, we inevitably feel empty or unfulfilled, because we are looking for something outside of ourselves to fill an internal void. True fulfillment comes from knowing ourselves deeply, from accepting ourselves fully, and from living in a way that honors our inner truth. It comes from recognizing that we are already whole, that we already have everything we need within us to create a life that feels meaningful and aligned. This shift in perspective can be life-changing. Instead of constantly chasing after something more, we begin to appreciate what we already have. We stop looking for happiness in the future and start finding it in the present moment. We stop comparing ourselves to others and start valuing our own unique journey. And, as we do, we experience a sense of peace and contentment that is not dependent on external circumstances. But living in alignment with our true selves requires courage. It requires us to step away from the expectations of others, to let go of the need for approval, and to trust in our own inner guidance. It requires us to be willing to take risks, to embrace uncertainty, and to follow our intuition, even when it leads us down a path that others may not understand. This is not always easy, especially in a world that often encourages conformity and discourages individuality. But the more we trust ourselves, the more we listen to our inner voice, the more we realize that we are capable of creating a life that feels deeply meaningful and fulfilling, regardless of what others may think or say. One of the greatest challenges on this journey is learning to trust ourselves, learning to believe that we are capable of making the right decisions, that we have the wisdom within us to navigate the complexities of life. For many of us, this trust has been eroded over time, whether through past failures, societal conditioning, or the influence of others who have told us that we are not enough. But the truth is, we are more than enough. We are powerful, wise, and capable beyond measure. And when we begin to trust ourselves, we unlock a wellspring of inner strength and resilience that can carry us through even the most difficult of times. This trust in ourselves also extends to the process of life itself. When we trust that life is unfolding exactly as it is meant to, we release the need to control every aspect of our experience. We stop fighting against the current and instead learn to flow with it. We begin to see that even the challenges we face are part of our growth, that every experience, whether positive or negative, has something to teach us. This doesn't mean that life becomes easy or that we won't face difficulties, but it does mean that we approach those difficulties with a sense of faith and openness, knowing that we have the strength and wisdom to navigate whatever comes our way. One of the most powerful realizations we can have on this journey is that we are not separate from life. We are life. The same energy that moves through the universe moves through us. We are part of the vast, interconnected web of existence, and our actions, thoughts, and emotions ripple out into the world, influencing everything around us. This interconnectedness reminds us that we are never truly alone, even in our darkest moments. We are part of something much larger than ourselves, and our individual journey is intricately woven into the collective journey of all beings. When we remember this, we begin to see our lives from a broader perspective. We realize that our personal growth is not just about us. It is about how we show up in the world, how we contribute to the collective consciousness, and how we impact the lives of others. The key to navigating this journey is to remain open, to stay curious, to keep exploring, and to continue asking questions. There is always more to learn, always more to discover, both about ourselves and the world around us. Each moment offers an opportunity to go deeper, to expand our awareness, and to step more fully into our potential. And while the path may be winding and unpredictable, it is also rich with possibility, with beauty, and with the potential for transformation. In the end, the journey of self-discovery and personal growth is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to who we have always been. It is about peeling back the layers of conditioning, fear, and self-doubt that have obscured our true essence, and allowing the light of our authentic selves to shine through. It is about embracing the fullness of who we are, our strengths, our vulnerabilities, our imperfections, and realizing that we are already whole, exactly as we are. And as we step more fully into this truth, we begin to live in a way that feels deeply aligned with our soul's purpose, knowing that the journey itself is the greatest gift of all.